Good morning, everybody. How we feeling? All right, I'm insecure. I thrive off energy. Let's try that again. How you feeling? All right, let's get it. As Jason mentioned, my name's Gerard Green. I'm the Vice President of Product Marketing at HighSpot. And I'm here to talk about one of my favorite topics in the world. It's not just the ability to create killer content, which we all do and all have a passion for, but it's the ability to put that content in context. And it's a really simple equation that I hope you take with you and apply so that you can get your sales teams, your services teams, your revenue generating teams to make sure that they carry the messages and the positioning you've created so well forward to market so that you can win more deals faster. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, you've seen this statistic before. This is plastered all over LinkedIn and other channels. Most of the content we work so hard to produce goes unused by sales team. No surprise here. No one's taking a picture of the statistic. You've seen it all before. But I think we want to kind of double click into why this is the case. And I've been on many panels, I've been in many discussions, I've been in this space for a while, and I think it comes down to a few reasons. One of them is that I don't think we always give ourselves credit for making our content easy to find. And so I think we can solve that through a different set of channels. I think there's another component of we don't always tell the stories. Our previous speaker just mentioned it. We don't always put content in the context that our sellers are having the conversation in. And I think there's some things we can do to solve that. But ultimately, I think there's three simple ways we can solve for the macro problem. And without further ado, we'll get into that. You guys will recognize this from the last PMA survey around what it is we as product marketers do. And I think, again, you see an over-index on things like the messaging and the positioning. We work really hard to craft the messaging houses. We work really hard to add primary and secondary research to that positioning. We want to make sure our persona guides are good. And then we create the content and the collateral that carries those messages forward. We want to make sure it is clean and pristine in every single channel it touches, whether it's our website, whether it's our content repository, whether it's our enablement platform, whether it's the seller's desktop. We want to make sure that that content is good and clean and accurate. And then ultimately, that content carries a lot of the other things we spend a lot of time doing that we care about. We need to launch new products. We need to disposition competitors. We need to tell really effective stories that compel people to make decisions a lot faster. We need to segment our customer base. Sometimes we need to attack new markets, new industries, new geographies. And so for us, the job's never done. And I think like we're all crazy enough to kind of get into this space. This is what we do. And so I don't think anyone looks at this chart and freaks out. This sounds like a regular day in the life of a product marketer. So much of what we do depends on the content we create. And my team's in the room, they'll tell you content's one of my trigger words. I've been in many meetings where sellers or marketing folks or services folks will say, why don't you guys just create the content? Isn't that the only thing you do? It is one of the fastest ways to start a fight with me at HighSpot is to just put me in that bucket and put my team in that bucket of content. I will whip this slide out in a heartbeat to remind folks that it is more than just content. But it is the thing that I think people resonate with. It is the thing I think they can touch, they can feel, they can use, and if they have it, it really allows them to be confident. Content does instill and drive a lot of confidence that they need. So we're gonna work on changing some of the word and some of the verbiage here. Here's what it comes down to, and our last speaker just touched on this. It is really hard to connect what we do in that last slide to top and bottom line revenue. It is really hard to know what things we are explicitly doing that drive business results. I had a phenomenal offsite with my team just about 2 weeks ago. And one of the challenges we highlighted is, yes, we are a company that uses OKRs, and we have OKRs that are well documented and well displayed, but man, how do I, as a product marketer, connect my outputs to those outcomes? How do I see myself in the work? And I think, again, this isn't just a challenge for product marketers. I can talk to sales enablement leaders. I can talk to customer success leaders. I can talk to product leaders who might say some of the same things. It is really hard to know what exact thing we are doing to drive business results. Even when we have the data, it's really hard. And I think the part that we talk a lot about and think a lot about is seller empathy. Let's put seller empathy at the forefront of what we do. They got a lot on their plate. And I'm very sensitive to what they go through. It's a very difficult job. I could not do it. I've never even tried, but it's a very difficult job to do sales, particularly in this environment. If you think about what they're up against, there's a phenomenal slide you guys should steal. It's from Gartner, and it talks about the buyer's journey and all the steps you got to take to do the puzzle. If you've seen it, you know it. It's a really good slide. That buyer complexity is real. Those committees have swelled from 7 to 20 to 50. Decision makers are occasional. People come in, they start projects, they stop projects, budgets get cut, headcount gets moved. It is very difficult to transact software or your products in any market. And so again, that buyer complexity going up is things sellers have to deal with, and we should be empathetic to that. There's also accelerated pace of change on both sides. If you're a tech company, you're releasing new products, new capabilities on a continuum. Your competitors are releasing new products, new capabilities on a continuum. Your buyers have new expectations of what these tools do. They add more things to the RFP. There's just an increased, accelerated pace of change in any market you work in, and sales teams have to cope with that, right? The battle card they had yesterday might not be the battle card they need for tomorrow because things have changed that quickly. And of course, there's looming economic uncertainties. I could have left this slide in from even a year ago, right? The economy is just kind of one thing, one macroeconomic set of conditions we don't have control over. And when those loom over sellers' head, they tend to change the behavior a lot, right? We know sales folks, I love them to death, coin operated. And so what they have to do to make quota may be incongruent with the way we message, the way we position. They got kids to feed. And so I think it's very important for us to understand that the pressures they are under at any given moment before we say, why aren't you using my content? They're dealing with a lot. And even the best organizations respond in a way that may be incongruent with what a sales rep can actually deal with. So take all those things, the increased buyer complexity, take the accelerated pace of change, take the looming economic uncertainty, and to recognize that most organizations, whether it's product marketing, product teams, enablement teams, respond by doing these things. What do? We need more content. Let's produce it for them. We need more sales plays. We need more sales playbooks. We need more guidance on what to do. We need more training. We need more insights into what's happening. Let's cut this data by geo, by segment, by sales tenure. Let's find new insights and new dashboards. Let's give them more tools. Let's buy them a new tool. Yeah, that'll solve it, right? And so again, they're dealing with all these things, and in response, the typical thing to do is to provide more. What do we find? Well, more doesn't mean better. What we find is that, again, 70% of that content we created more of goes unused. It goes into a folder, right? The training that we've given them is forgotten, sometimes within days if it's not applied right away. Even best-in-class organizations still don't have more than half the field attaining quota. So if you think about that, most organizations will look at the all-up revenue number, but don't look at what percentage of the reps attain quota. They don't measure the participation rate. And again, it may not be difficult to do, but by just looking at quota attainment and what percent of reps get it gives you a better indicator of consistent revenue performance. Are you 70 on 70 or 80 on 80? And even in best-in-class organizations, from our friends at Exactly, only about 50% of reps actually attain quota. So a lot of teams are driving performance on the backs of just a few really good reps and a few really good managers and a few really good teams. What would it mean to spread that love out a little bit? And then what happens if our sellers don't make their numbers? Well, they leave. They leave. And what happens if they do make their numbers? They leave. They might find a better job somewhere else. They might realize that, hey, this is for the birds. I want to do something different. And so again, even with more, these are the results we get. So again, I want to put those seller shoes on for a minute because I think it's really important to recognize what they go through before, again, we say, oh, you don't use our content and I'm frustrated with you. There's a different way I think we could have that conversation. So here's what it comes down to. Your sellers need it to make sense. One of the models we have on my team is just make it make sense. There's so much complexity that they deal with. You might only have them for a minute. You might only have them for 5 minutes. You might only have them for one session. But for that time you have it, make it make sense. Because again, it's going to need to be memorable. It's going to need to be impactful. It's going to need to be something that they can apply. Because anytime we stand up and kind of wax poetic in front of them, the eyes glaze over and they start to tune out. And now we've missed that moment. So what are the things we can do pragmatically to make it make sense with all of the touch points, all the tools, and all the forums we have with our sales teams? This is the equation. This is the start of it. Guys, our content needs context. And you can probably tell from the title, I'm a little addicted to alliteration, so just get ready for that pattern of alliteration forthcoming. But the content we produce needs context. And what do I mean by context? There's many forms of context. And I think, again, this is not an exhaustive list. Some of you are doing these things really well today. So I'm not going to get into what tools you should use. I'm not going to go over kind of what the landscape looks like. I'm not going to do that. I will talk about some of the things you may have at your disposal today that I think you can take better advantage of. For your content, sometimes it might be as simple as just writing an internal description of what this piece of content is. We know what the buyer's journey looks like. We've all seen the infographic. We know what plays at the top, the middle, and the bottom. Our sellers don't. I don't think they have context of the buyer's journey. And if I go back to that really complex Gartner buyer journey map, sometimes you may need to introduce a top of funnel piece of content at a lower stage in the cycle because a new buyer's just entered the committee. So a lot of times just having an internal description of what is this content supposed to do, who's it for, when should I use it, when could it be really effective, when should I not use it, what audience will this resonate with. Sometimes just putting that internal description next to the content goes a long way. Because just to assume that they'll magically find it, use it, and apply it for the right buyer, right scenario, right industry, right segment is hope, and hope's not a strategy. Ratings and reviews. This is a really good feedback loop to think about. You may have a platform that allows you to put a piece of content out there and then have your sellers rate it, just like they would on Amazon, right? My wife doesn't buy anything on Amazon that's not at least a 4.5-star rating, and I think it's the same thing for content. What if your sellers could actually just rate the content? Say, this is really good. This is a really good piece of content. This allowed me to unlock a sales cycle. It allowed me to unblock a buyer. It allowed me to move a thing forward. This is great. Keep this coming. And then guess what? Other sellers see it. It's not about us. I mean, it feels good to get that kind of rating, I'm not going to lie. But for other sellers to see it and say, well, if Tommy uses this, and Tommy really likes this, and maybe this is good, because Tommy's a crusher. Tommy knows what he's talking about. So how do other sellers feel about it is kind of metadata context. I think you could apply to your content in a really simple way. Related and recommended content, like what else out there is in the universe? I like to think about content curation. I like to pair my content like wine and cheese. Like I like to think about how this white paper complements this ebook and how this infographic complements this video. What pairs really well together? How do you kind of build like this curated experience of the content the buyer's gonna need? And more, I think you guys are in industries that allow you to work with customers who are probably 60, 70, maybe 80% down the path of the buyer's journey. So guess what? We kind of need to give them content that just helps them transact. That whole buyer enablement thing is real. Most of the time, our buyers just want to look like they've done the really hard work of writing the RFP and writing the questions down and talking to 15 customers. Let's curate that stuff for our sellers to give to our buyers to make everybody's job easier. So again, think about what assets pair really well with each other. Start to package those in a way where your sales team can not just go get one piece of content, but 3 or 4 or 7, and then think about how it all fits in the grand scheme of things. The engagement insights, once it leaves your system, once your seller sends that, whether it's through your engagement platform, whether it's through email, whether it's through snail mail, however you want to do it, how are your buyers engaging with that content? Are they reading the whole thing, or are they stopping on page 3 and never seeing it again? Are they sharing it with other people? Does this become a piece of content that goes from your champion to the executive sponsor and back again? Does this go to procurement after it's sent? That's an interesting signal. So again, the ability to kind of gather those engagement insights of the content can be context you can also apply to the content. How many of you have sales playbooks in any context? Just show of hands. I used to have Manymeter, but so many of you have sales playbooks. And I think a lot of the sales playbooks that we used to write and I used to create, and you guys probably have as well, kind of highlight what content should be used in what scenarios. It's one thing to say, hey, the sales playbook talks about these personas, these industries, these compelling events, and then here's content that goes alongside of it. Well, I'm sure you're also producing content so damn quick that as soon as you print that sales playbook, it's out of date the minute it hits the seller's desk. So think about how the content fits into the bigger picture. Think about how you can digitize these sales playbooks so that as your content gets updated, it stays fresh and it stays in the context of what your seller needs. And then your CRM integration. If you have a CRM system and you can think about not just where the content lives, but how is the content influencing revenue? How's it driving business outcomes? Where's it being used in the sales stage? How is it convert? Those are the things that I think really start to light up and provide context into how your content's working. And very quickly, you'll see a scenario where your content that isn't performing should be the stuff you stop working on. And it's really hard. Like we talk about it. We have to have the will to archive the old stuff. Like even if our sellers love this case study from 2018, if it no longer reflects your value proposition, if it no longer speaks to what your buyers need to think about, just put it away. It's not fine wine, doesn't get better with age. You might just need to put a new coat of paint on it. You might want to update that story. But have the will to archive, have the will to update, have the will to keep your stuff fresh, because the minute your seller finds something that is out of date, you've now lost a lot of trust you've worked so hard to build. Many forms of context you can put into the system regardless of what you have. So here's the first equation. Content without that context equals chaos. Content without context equals chaos. And what does chaos look like for you guys? I mean, it can be many forms of things. I've seen chaos in terms of sellers who kind of hoard that content on their desktop. I've seen Slack as a search service. How many of you guys are getting that Slack every day? Hey, where's this white paper? I can't find this thing. And you'll send it to them, but like you know what that life is like. How many of you have been in a QBR where someone in the sales leadership team says, we don't have the content we need, and the product marketing team hasn't updated this thing in 4 years, and you're ready to fight just like I am. But this is one of the forms of chaos I think you guys are all experiencing. I think it's important. Here's the other side of the equation. I want to change the word content to being confident. Every time a seller says, hey, do you have a piece of content that I can use here? Or do you have this? I think they're really asking for confidence. I think what they really want is the ability to do the things that we as product marketers do really well, which is convey the meaningful, unique, defensible differentiation of our stuff as clean and as smooth as we do, right? And the content sometimes does it for them. And that's what they want. They want the confidence to do it. And you know your best sellers don't need that massive repository because they've built the confidence. But think about your middle-of-the-road sellers. Think about your middle of the pack. Think about your brand-new sellers who don't have that yet. They're leaning on you. They expect you to provide that confidence. Not always that content, but that confidence, because they don't want to have to rely on content either. Your buyer don't want to read 50 pieces of content. Your seller don't want to read it. But they do want to be confident. Sellers want to be confident in their ability to transact. Your buyer wants to be confident that they made the right decision and that they're going to look good from this. Like everybody just wants to be confident. So let's help them do that. Let's take all the great content, messaging, positioning, materials that we provide. Let's put context around it. Let's make our sellers more confident. So again, that chaos confidence model might look like this for you guys. I always talk about the default to desktop. One of the things we used to see in terms of leveraging, whether it was SharePoint or leveraging other content repositories, you see this massive increase in downloads right at sales kickoff time. So we get everybody in the room for sales kickoff in January, and then all your sellers download all the new stuff, and then they put it on their desktop. They never come back to the repository. They never come back for new things. And so again, they have a folder called marketing stuff, and they will pull from it every time, right? And it's out of date, it's off brand, it's off message, but that's what got Jeff to club in 2019, and so he's not bound to change his ways in any way. Jeff's a real person, by the way. There's high value or high volume of low value content. So they're using stuff that's just not great, stuff that would make us all cringe as product marketers. Off-dated, inaccurate. They're often a vocal critic too, because they haven't updated their marketing stuff folder. They don't know what's new. And so again, they're the ones saying that you guys haven't produced anything. I don't know where your new stuff is. And now again, you're tense, you're ready to fight. And again, your marketing is search as a service. Help me find the thing that I saw that one time with that one quote with the thing in it. You guys, you know what I'm talking about. The thing with the number, that one, I need that. We want to get to the confidence on the right. We want to be this, kind of confidence content center. We want high value of high value content, high volume of high value content. We want to use the updated stuff. We want our sales folks to be vocal advocates, and we want to be seen as a trusted partner in the go-to-market machine, right? We're not exclusively a content center. That's not all we do. Again, fast way you can fight with me. That's not all we do, but we do want to be seen as somebody who can help sellers communicate that differentiated, meaningful value at every turn. So that's important. I think there's 3 steps we can do to do this, and I'll get to this so we can get some questions. I think the first thing you can do is think about consolidation. You typically have a Menti poll here, but we'll just try a show of hands. Where do you guys keep your content? Can I get a show of hands for just have a file storage system, Box, Dropbox, things of that nature? Content there? Some of you do? Okay. Content management system, SharePoint, other places. Cool. Digital asset management. Sales enablement platforms. All right, you guys are my people. Content's all over the place. Even with the 5 systems, you got them all and it's still all over the place? Yep, see a lot of hands there, right? So again, like the centralization becomes important. Your sellers kind of want this one-stop shop. You want the one-stop shop, but everybody's got a different point of view on the one-stop shop. I've gotten into many conversations with marketing teams about, well, no, we have brand folder, we have our own digital asset management system. We're gonna keep the raw stuff here, and how does this play with that system, and how does... Sellers don't care. Just give them one place to go. Give them one trusted single source of truth, and it goes a long way into building that confidence. Get to good. I mean, I think if you're probably in chaos mode, try to get to good. Get to a place where your sellers can at least find what they look for. Try to use some sense of a marketing-driven taxonomy. Think about, case studies or testimonials. Try to use some of our words. Try to limit. I think sometimes we see the number of people who can publish content. A lot of times we say we're the only team that can publish this. No one else can create content. I think that's unreasonable, but as a first step, if you can get there, great. If you can integrate that system with CRM so that the content actually finds the seller in the context of the opportunities, doing pretty good. I think what's better would be some of the things on the right. What if the content actually found the sellers? Again, what if we could actually get to a place where, given where they are in the journey, given where they are against the competitor, given where they are in an industry, given where they are in a segment, here's the piece of content you need, Jeff. Don't go to that folder. This is exactly what you need. And 9 times out of 10, I guarantee it'll be a new piece of content for him. Try to get to a seller-driven taxonomy. This is another true story. I once got into an argument with a sales rep named Mark who said, you don't have any case studies. I can't find any case studies, and I'm struggling to find them. It's a different system, different days. But the conversation was about, no. He was looking for case studies, and the taxonomy we were using was around customer evidence. So we had built this whole folder for customer evidence. It had 50-some case studies in there. He's like, evidence? I would never use that word. It sounds like a crime scene. So our inability to get connected on the language just kind of created this friction, this unnatural tension, and we just weren't using the same words. And so again, being able to get into more of a seller-driven taxonomy, using the words that they use, I think goes a long way in helping them get what they want. It's not about what we want to use as taxonomy. It's really about what the audience needs. Instead of trying to do fewer publishers and kind of lock that world down, what would it look like if you had multiple people who could publish, but you set some really clean governance and guidance rules? What if you made sure that every piece of content had an internal description? What if you made sure that every piece of content that goes in your repository had an expiration date? What if you made sure that every piece of content you created had a feedback owner? And even if that feedback owner leaves the business, it will populate with the next person. Like, those are the things I think we need to apply to make sure our content stays fresh. It's just some governance around it. And then not just integrated with the CRM system, but many of you have emerging or evolving sales tech. So whether that's the sales engagement tools, whether it's the call recording tools, like there's just a litany of sales tech out there. Try to get tools, if you're gonna go down that realm, that can do the broader integration with these best of breeds, because ultimately your sellers don't want to daisy chain through 5, 6 systems. They kind of want mission control in some capacity. So again, consolidation will help eliminate a lot of that chaos. We think about governance as a way to keep things fresh, accurate, and effective. What about quantification? So again, how do you guys measure performance? Again, I don't have Menti, so you guys, anybody got a system that does ratings and reviews? Anybody look at those? Okay, cool. Views, how many times has the seller seen this stuff? Downloads, those are fun. You guys download, again, they're downloaded, putting in their folder. Viewing time, how long have they looked at it? Influence revenue, anyone measuring that? Ooh, okay, all right, I see it. All right, and then the other means to measure, we can talk offline, no problem. But again, if you think about the ways you measure the impact of it, I think good would be some of the things we talked about. Sellers looked at this, yay. Sellers have shared this with other sellers, very cool. Sellers have downloaded this is awesome. This thing is flying off the shelf, and then our sellers are looking at this over time. That's great. I'd like to see us all shift to some of the better things. How are our buyers looking at it, right? How are they sharing it? How are they downloading it? How often are they looking at it? How many page views and unique page views are you getting? Are they getting to page 7 of the case study, or are they stopping at 3? And then ultimately, how is that content influencing revenue? Sorry, I'm going quick. I'm just conscious of time. And so again, if you can find ways to quantify the impact of that content, if you can see the influence, because again, you'll never measure the exact role of the content, but if I can measure influence, if I can say, hey, when this case study is used, our win rate goes up about 5 points. Or when we use this piece of content, we shrink the sales cycle by about 30 days. We actually have those insights. We can look at those. Those feel good. So those are the kind of conversations, the data-driven conversations we want to have with our stakeholders. And then last, this is the fun one. This is about collaboration. This is one that I think you can do regardless of any kind of technology investment you make. How often do you guys partner with your sales team on creating content? How many in the never camp? All right, cool. How many kind of sometimes, rarely? All right, and then how many always collaborate with sellers? Okay, awesome. So you got a mixed bag, and I think, again, the opportunity is on the good side. Let's curate the content. Let's think about how we curate it. How do we think about the notification of what the new stuff is? How do we think about providing suggested content use cases? Again, that context around it. Use this here. Use this for these ops. Use these for these scenarios. How do we share what many of you publish as an editorial calendar? How do you give sellers visibility into what's coming and when it's coming? How do you give them an opportunity to kind of weigh in, upvote, downvote on some of the things they need to unlock sales motions? How do you create a content feedback loop, whether that's rating, reviews, a forum, a conversation? And then how do you do content request automation? We put this into an Airtable form just a couple. No, we did it last year. We put it into Airtable form. We'll say, hey, if you guys need something, let us know. Doesn't mean we always create it. Doesn't mean we're there as a service. But sometimes, I promise you, a lot of what goes into the content request form just is us saying, oh, this exists already. This is right here. It's not exactly what you need, but this is here, or this is exactly what you need, and it published yesterday and you didn't know about it. I think better would be things like contextual guidance, right? Guidance alongside of every piece of content you create and you curate. CRM integration to prompt what's used. One of the cheat codes, I talk about cheat codes a lot. A lot of times if you want your sellers to use the content, write the email template for them. Just write it for them, put the link in there. They're not going to read it. So just write the email for them, and I guarantee you'll start to see that content you need at the top of funnel, particularly for your ADRs, your BDRs, start to get leveraged more if you just write the template for them. Is there an editorial board you have with your sales team? This has been a major unlock for us. I've done this at HighSpot. I've done this in previous lives. If I can get 5 or 6 of our best sellers, and we can sit down on a quarterly basis and say, what are you guys using? What are you guys seeing? What do you guys need? It is a great feedback loop to feed inputs into the system. What you find is typically they just want the old stuff that's good updated. They don't need new, they don't need shiny, they don't need new form factors. They like what works, they just want it to reflect the latest positioning, messaging, competitive. So again, that editorial board goes a long way. And then we peer review content. Oftentimes, if I write a piece, and I do write pretty often, I will send it to our sales engineer, and I'll say, Alexandra, what do you think of this? How's this fly? Is this how you guys talk? Does this work? And most often, we'll end up going back either to the drawing board and creating it, but guess what happens when we publish it? I get to say, hey, guys, Alexandra wrote this. Like, it wasn't me, it was her. And now people can kind of own that. And then the last is this notion of content amnesty. This is a fun one. Just give a form for your sellers to send you their ugly stuff. It's cool, I promise. Just let them send you the last pitch that they use in the meeting. Sometimes they'll caveat with, hey, I know you guys are gonna get upset. I didn't use your messaging, I didn't use your positioning, I didn't use your branding. But man, I'm telling you, this really resonates. Give them the forum to give that to you, because I guarantee it's got some great ideas in there. They're not doing it to be malicious. They're not doing it to undercut you. They're doing it to win the deal. So give them that platform to say, give us what you got. We're not gonna judge you. We're not gonna shame you. But if you give us what you have and you tell us what is working and resonating, we can kind of put that into the machine, put some context around it, and now get it to everybody. Now it's not this one-off unique work of art. Now it's something everybody can use. So again, improving that seller collaboration, work with them on the things they need to be successful. This is an example of one of the things that we co-created. Jessica Turner and I, about 4 months into my tenure, she had a really rough guide of what is a mutual action plan. And she said, I've used these in other companies. It's kind of a buyer's guide that I use at the end of every SQL demo that I have. I will stop the call 10 minutes before it ends, and I will tell the buyer, this is how we're gonna sell you the product. These are the steps you're gonna take. These are the stakeholders I need. This is the data we need. These are the approvals we need. You need to talk to procurement now. You need to talk to security now. You need to talk to IT now. I'm telling you, it's going to take some steps if you've never bought software before, because she found that a lot of people she were telling to had never done a project. And so she had this really good guide. It was just need a little bit of love. And so what we were able to do was to say, okay, let's co-create that mutual action plan. That's what you're looking at on the right. And that kind of walks through all the steps it takes. Now here's the beauty of this. She can go into a meeting and say, you don't have to take all of these steps, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer. I'm just showing you what our best customers do. And from that moment, she's instilled trust. She's helped them guide. She's helped guide and navigate them through what they might see as a complex process if they've never bought a platform before. And then she's able to have a different set of conversation. Nothing to do with product, nothing to do with our roadmap, everything to do with salesmanship. And so our ability to create that makes me and Jess friends to this day. And then another piece, we had a sales manager named John Garan. And John said, hey, Gerard, I'm really struggling to help my team communicate the value of implementation. How long is it gonna take? A lot of our buyers don't care how long it takes. They wanna make sure it's good. And so is there something in the realm of how to get ready for, like, what to expect when you're expecting HighSpot? Is there something we could do in terms of getting our buyers ready for the deployment? And John and my team sat down and created this together. And John says, once this is created, I will make sure everybody on my team uses it in every single meeting, and John's held his word. So again, these are some of our greatest hits of last year. We kind of continue to kind of curate this process over time. So it's a lot of fun. I'm at time, I'm over, but would love to engage in any conversation you guys want to have on the side. I'm here throughout the next few days. HighSpot booths around, and there's a session tomorrow to tune into. So thanks for the platform. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Gerard. That was great. I love the idea of content amnesty. That's a
safe space.
That's a good one. Safe space. For the folks in the tech room, I think let's toss up the Q&A. We'll do a couple. I know we're short on time, but just want to give everyone a chance to see what bubbles up to the top as like some of the most popular questions. Or if anyone has a question from the audience, raise your hand. Zach's there with a mic, and I can just point you out.
It's hot right now, so if anyone wants to use it. Any takers?
Yeah, I see. Yep, stand up, sir. BJ?
You're audible. I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, hi.
able to hear me. In my recent org, there is this challenge of proving that there needs a metric system for the content repository. Mm-hmm. I think the slides that you presented is exactly what I'm going through. Good. So kudos on that research. So how do you want me to, kind of approach to the leadership team in terms of letting them know how important it is to have a metric system that kind of shows an impact of a content? Because people tend to believe that when you do sales, the revenue numbers is what matters, mm-hmm. Nothing in between. So it's a very difficult process for me to navigate and convince the leaders that why it is important to have such metric system. So did you come across any cases like that when you were selling the solution?
Absolutely, and using it. I've been a user of many systems, and I think that's been kind of the challenge is how do we level up the conversation from just sellers are using the content and sellers are successful to kind of seeing what happens in the middle. And one of the things we've done a good job in is just we put the content in context through what we call sales plays. And it's the ability to say, hey, for any of the strategic initiatives you guys are running, a launch, a competitive takeout, a vertical sales motion, a cross-sell motion, all the things that are at that kind of executive level of conversations we're having. We need the sales team to do this. We need the sales team to change behavior here. Content's going to be one piece of it, but it's guidance. How do they use that content? There's another piece of it, which is training. Okay, how do I learn about this new thing, this new industry, this new competitor? And then we've also unlocked, I think, the cheat code on sales coaching. How do the sales managers learn to reinforce what the content says, the guidance says, and what the training says? And so again, I think over the last 3 years, we've seen an evolution of even our own market where it goes beyond just our reps using the content and they're using it in the right scenarios into are the reps prepared to drive change in a sustainable, consistent way? And I think once we kind of pivot that conversation, content is one leg in the stool, not the only one, but to be able to kind of put it again in context to say when we're driving a launch, the ability for our sellers to know what the new product is, know how to position, know how to message, and know how to execute is critical for the success of the revenue we think this launch is going to drive. So start with product marketing. We get to own that conversation a little differently. So I'd be happy to kind of talk to you about the way we think about sales plays and analytics because I think it's such a far departure from even where we were 3 years ago.
Absolutely. Maybe I'll connect with you later.
For sure. Absolutely.
Discuss it. Thank you.
Of course.
Great. You got a lot of fans of your deck. Wondering if you can share it.
Of course. I steal stuff. This is what I say. I steal everything. So that Gartner slide, I stole it. It's in our deck. So by all means, take it, steal it. It's yours, and then iterate, share it back. But yeah, I steal. So
I think P may be publishing it too. But hit up Gerard on LinkedIn too. I'll give you the slides. And then the last question, I think this will be a quick one. The second one you kind of just covered a little bit. How do you keep content off the desktops? Can you get tactical with us and tell us how you get it off the desktop?
I mean, I tell us if you want to keep it on the desktop, fine. But I'm not going to provide a world where like that becomes the best way to do things. The notification of new content I'm finding is just like a challenge. So when new stuff comes out, how do you let them know it exists? And then don't put it in a place sometimes that makes it easy to download. It sounds weird. But again, I think most of the time, if you're using a cloud-based system, and the value of using a cloud-based system is that if you need to change it, if you need to modify it, if you need to edit it, you can do it in real time without disrupting seller workflow. They see the value of it. The other side of it is that we want them to get the analytics of how the thing's performing. And if you just do it on a desktop, you're not going to get that in an aggregate. So there's a mutual, I think, value prop of the seller saying, hey, when I send this and I send this and I can see how it resonates and you guys can see it in an aggregate, I get more of it, great. But I think, again, we've done a pretty good job of saying, like, you can pluck from the tree if you want, but the fruit is going to rot in the folder. So I'm not, yeah. Weird analogy, but you get it.
Everybody give it up for Gerard. Thanks, Gerard.
Appreciate it.